So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, when Ben Johnson was appointed the offensive coordinator for the 2022 NFL season, he was given one job and one job only: make this offense competitive and score points. And that is exactly what they are going to try to do with big additions this offseason like DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, a healthy offensive line returning, as well as TJ, DeAndre Swift, and Amon-Ra St. Brown all making their return to the Detroit offense. It is expected to see massive improvements this year, especially under young offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. But Ben Johnson knows one thing in particular, that this offense will go as far as quarterback Jared Goff can take them, and as such, he is doing everything in his power to, quote, give Jared Goff his best season ever. And today we are going to talk about that. Today we are going to take a look at Jared Goff's best season as a pro, talk about what Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions are doing in order to help Jared Goff return to that level of success, and overall talk about whether or not Jared Goff can have the best season of his career next year like Ben Johnson wants him to have. So with all that being said and all the intro stuff out of the way, let's get straight on into taking a look at Jared Goff's best season as a pro and whether he can top it in 2020 under Ben Johnson. Now, Jared Goff's best season as a pro came in 2018, where Jared Goff led the Los Angeles Rams to a 13-3 record, throwing with a 65% completion percentage, throwing over 4,600 yards, 32 touchdowns to just 12 interceptions. He also led the Rams to Super Bowl 53, where they eventually fell to the New England Patriots. But nonetheless, Jared Goff had a very, very strong season with LA in 2018, tossing, as I said, 32 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, over 4,600 yards, and leading his team to a 13-3 record and a Super Bowl berth. Early in the season, Jared Goff was getting MVP type hype for his numbers, and eventually that did end up dying down. However, the hype was still there at the beginning of the season, and statistically, he was right up there with some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, although the team Jared Goff was on was a good one, I wouldn't say the team was necessarily a stacked football team, right? The weapons that Jared Goff was throwing to included Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, both of whom accumulated over 1,000 receiving yards under Jared Goff in 2018, as well as Cooper Kupp and Josh Reynolds, who both had between 400 to 600 yards receiving as the wide receivers 3 and 4. Obviously, Todd Gurley was a really, really good running back and helped that team find success on the offensive side of the ball through the running game, but Jared Goff was a huge part of that passing attack and was a huge part of why the Rams had so much success that season, right? He outdueled Patrick Mahomes on maybe the greatest offensive game in NFL history that year on Monday Night Football. I mean, he had multiple 5, 6 touchdown performances. He had multiple 4, 5 touchdown performances, 300, 400 yard games over and over and over again. And I mean, he was a great quarterback that year with legit MVP type buzz. And although the weapons I wouldn't say were great, right? There's no all-pro wide receiver. They had some good wide receivers and they had some good tools around him. But the Detroit Lions situation really isn't that much worse than what Jared Goff had going into that 2018 season, right? You look at the Detroit Lions offense and say, okay, at worst, they're going to have a top 10 offensive line in the NFL next year, right? With just the sheer amount of talent and coaching coaching on that offensive line between Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Big V, and Penei Sewell, with Hank Fairley at offensive line coach, and some fairly decent depth, especially on the interior of that offensive line. They are at the very worst going to finish top 10 in the NFL as an offensive line. They're simply too talented to do anything otherwise. That offensive line that Jared Goff has is far, far better than what he had to work with in the 2018 season under the Los Angeles Rams. The Detroit Lions also have a top 10 tight end in TJ Hockenson, somebody that can block, somebody that can catch, and somebody that is just, in general, one of the top tight ends in the NFL. And although he's no Kittle, although he's no, Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, TJ Hockenson is a very good tight end one, and he is easily a top 10 at his position in the NFL and is easily better than any of the tight ends that were on that 2018 Rams roster. Now you look at the weapons he's throwing to, and I'm not going to say that they're better because I do not know, and honestly, I do not think that the Detroit Lions will have two different 1,000-yard receivers this season, but I do think that the weapons are not significantly worse, and I do think they have the upside of exactly what those Rams receivers accomplished in 2018. DJ Chark is a former Pro Bowl wide receiver who can amass 1,000 yards. Jamison Williams is maybe the most explosive athlete and the most explosive player to come out of the 2022 NFL Draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown was one game away from breaking 1,000 yards, and if he was just a little bit more productive to start his career in the early half of the NFL season, he would have done so by himself. So I'm not going to say that the weapons are significantly worse than what Jared Goff had to work with in LA. Obviously, we know what the 2018 Rams accomplished, and we don't know what the 2022 Lions receiving core is going to accomplish. But I would say at their ceiling, they are very similar receiving cores with similar upside, and at their floor, they are a slightly worse receiving core production-wise than Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp, right? Jared Goff in 2018 was throwing to Jared Goff in 2018 was throwing to Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and Josh Reynolds. This year, he's throwing to DJ Chark, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Josh Reynolds, right? It's not a significantly worse receiving core, but it is a significantly better offensive line and a better tight end, to say the least. So the weapons are all there in order for Jared Goff to succeed. But the coaching staff has gone a long way to helping Jared Goff in other ways as well. Ben Johnson and Jared Goff have gone through multiple segments and multiple sessions in the film room going over 2018 and 2019 film from the Los Angeles Rams and Jared Goff's success as a football player, and finding key things, right? Finding plays, finding designs, finding concepts that really make Jared Goff comfortable and helped Jared Goff succeed and reach that MVP type status early in the 2018 and 2019 seasons respectively, right? They've gone through plays, they've gone through concepts, they've gone through a lot of different things that can help Jared Goff return to his 2018 form and return to what he looked like with the LA Rams when he was confident and when the Rams believed in him. And Jared Goff had a lot of problems last year, right? You could argue the weapons weren't very good, right? His weapons were Tyrell Williams and Quintez Cephas essentially going into the 2021 NFL season. You can blame the weapons for the lack of early success in Detroit for Jared Goff. You can blame the offensive coaching staff, right? Anthony Lynn did Jared Goff very few favors in the 2021 season and really didn't help him succeed all that much. And what I think is the biggest point of emphasis and the biggest point of concern last season was just simply the confidence level of Jared Goff. And why would he be confident in himself? I mean, all offseason, he was told that he sucks, that he's not good enough, that he's a bridge quarterback, that he can't do anything for this team to make him the long-term option. He was told by the media that he wasn't good enough to win a Super Bowl in LA and that he will never do anything in Detroit. He was told all offseason by the Rams coaching staff that they didn't want him, and they proved that by giving away multiple first-round picks and a third-round pick to go and acquire Matthew Stafford. His confidence was at an all-time low after being dumped by the team that drafted him number 1 overall, and Dan Campbell spent the first 6 to 7 weeks of the NFL season building Jared Goff back up, building him up as a player, building him up as a person, and it truly was a tale of two halves this season for Jared Goff. The first half of the season, very, very poor. Underthrown footballs, really bad reads, poor interceptions. I mean, you can just kind of tell that Jared Goff wasn't 100% there. Jared Goff wasn't 100% the quarterback that he was in LA. His confidence was shot. His, he didn't feel like he could make the throws and lead the team to success. And you can kind of see it, right? The Lions were protecting him on third down by running the football. They weren't really calling that many deep shots. They were relying on yak, and they were relying on, more gimmicky plays to pick up chunk yardage, and it wasn't really on Jared Goff. The confidence wasn't there. The throws weren't being made, and the Lions offense suffered. But starting at the Pittsburgh game and moving on, Jared Goff played much better, right? I think Jared Goff, especially from Pittsburgh forward, really started to come into his own in the 2021 NFL season, and you could see it statistically. Where he really struggled early in the season, Pittsburgh and beyond, he played pretty darn well. He put up a 3-2-1 record for the Detroit Lions, finishing his final 6 games of the year with 3 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie that very realistically and obviously should have been a win for the Detroit Lions if their kicker had just made the kick in overtime. On top of that, Jared Goff put up over 11 passing touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, having a better than 100 quarterback rating to end the season in those 6 games overall. The weapons, as we mentioned, are very similar, and Jared Goff's confidence is back. I'm not saying Jared Goff is going to be a MVP candidate. I'm not saying that Jared Goff is going to amass 5,000 yards. I'm not saying he's going to throw for 40 touchdowns to 10 interceptions or anything like that. But Jared Goff's confidence is very clearly back. It was back at the end of last season, especially versus Green Bay in Arizona, and it is there in training camp. It has been stated over and over again how confident Jared Goff looks, how well he throws the football, how, just not aggressive to a fault, but how aggressive he is willing to be to fit the ball in tight windows, to throw a risky pass, to trust his wide receivers that we weren't hearing about a season ago at this time. And you can't make the argument, Jared Goff just simply got better in the middle of the season, right? He didn't get more accurate. He didn't get a stronger arm. He didn't get, significantly better wide receivers in the middle of the season. Yeah, the offensive system changed, but Jared Goff didn't get better as a football player, right? He didn't get more talented, I should say, as a football player in the middle of the season. He simply got more confident and felt like he was being trusted by the coaching staff. And that trust and that confidence is what really boosted the play of QB1. Now going into year 2, Jared Goff has that confidence going into week 1. He has better weapons, better offensive play calling, hopefully fingers crossed. He has coaches that believe in him. He has the confidence and the charisma back that he had in LA with the Rams that he used and that helped him put up the statistics that he did in 2018. And Jared Goff is in a situation where he can play the best football of his career. He is still relatively young. He has 2 years left on his contract to prove he can be the franchise quarterback, and under offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, with all of the weapons and all of the surrounding cast on the Detroit Lions offense going into 2022, there is no reason that Jared Goff cannot see the success he saw in LA, and there is no realistic reason that Jared Goff cannot reach his ceiling and have the best season of his career. Now, is it going to happen? Probably not. Our expectations a little high if we want to say Jared Goff is going to be a 4,000, almost 5,000 yard passer, throwing over almost 40 touchdowns to just over 10 interceptions. That's probably unrealistic expectations for Jared Goff. However, I think Jared Goff can be very efficient this year. All the tools are in place. Jared Goff, as a quarterback, I think is in a much better place than he was to start last year. And I think, Jared Goff is in the right situation to save his NFL career, whether it be by having the best season statistically of his career or helping the Detroit Lions find success they haven't seen in nearly half a decade. I think Jared Goff will find success this season. Statistically, might not be his best, but it might be one of his more efficient seasons in the NFL. And if nothing else, Jared Goff is going to be a significantly better quarterback next year than he was to start the 2021 season. With all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the Jared Goff situation. Do you think he can have the best season of his career like Ben Johnson wants him to have? Do you think he can pass 5,000 passing yards or even get back to that 4,000 to 4,300 range where he was year in and year out with the Los Angeles Rams? Do you think we could see a huge play bump in Jared Goff this season, or do you think think it's going to be more of the same with early struggles with intermediate success between certain games. I'd be very curious what you guys think. With all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.